Senator Marr, Representative Harris, Ranking Members Marin and Dauphiné, and members of the Committee on Children. Thank you for the opportunity to submit testimony in support of 1369. I want to thank you all for the undivided support that you've done for early care and education, highlighting transformational change being a priority for this committee. I also want to thank all the members of the committee that were available last year during session for the support on the 5002 bill, which created which highlighted the fund, the Early Childhood Fund, which a lot of these ideas this year really stem on. My name's Eva Bermúdez Zimmerman. I'm the Coalition Director for Child Care for CT. Our coalition has over 7,000 parents, providers, and advocates all coming together with one mindset, which is transforming childcare. Transformation for childcare doesn't mean nickel and dime. It means making sure that we have funding, long-term funding for providers, making sure that they're recognized in the work that they do, as well as creating affordability for parents. We are strongly here in support for SB 1369, an act concerning child care support for Connecticut's workforce. This workforce child care bill is an opportunity to address the critical issues that are overwhelming child care here right now and the working families in Connecticut. We urge you to pass it. It's a foundational piece of legislation that will drive economic and social progress for our state. What we anticipate 1369 could create and do is defining the eligibility for the workforce child care program and creating opportunities where parents and providers can streamline the system. We see that right now the system is boggled down by a lot of red tape, a lot of difficulties. With childcare programs offered in a way where it could be a wraparound service, that would truly be transformational. It also defines what childcare programs and providers could theoretically obtain. This is highlighted in line section 8 and lines 367 and 369 of the bill. We are really much enthusiastically supporting the cap on the cost for families, the 7% cap on household income. This is identified in lines 33 and 36, so you guys know. We also really are enamored with the lifting up the pay for childcare providers. We understand that if we're not lifting up the payment for childcare providers in the system, owner-operators, the childcare workforce, it's very hard to grow the workforce, stop the deserts that are multiplying and, trying to get new people into the system, into this career. And it also streamlines a defined revenue source and the desire of a defined revenue source. As a coalition, there are a lot of questions and curiosities within our advocates that are trying to figure out other reasonable and creative solutions to pay for this, the idea of transforming childcare. But we really want to highlight the importance of those creative solutions and are looking forward to the legislative body taking in a creative approach, but making sure that it's defined and making sure it's sustainable. I want to transition into painting a picture before I conclude, because I know I'm up on time here. Right now, the Connecticut system, the childcare system looks today is a little dire, right? Childcare providers can't pay their bills. They're really suffering to stay open. Nearly 30% of our childcare right now during the pandemic closed, and we're still not at pre-pandemic numbers. The financial strain leaves many parents unable to work and limits workforce participation. It stifles overall economic growth, and we can't ignore them. Our economy cannot afford to suffer any longer, and this is why we need bills like 1369 and other legislative proposals on the table to fix that. This bill goes beyond the financial relief for families. Connecticut's early childhood workforce and educators play a vital role, and we've seen that. This bill addresses that gap, proposing salary enhancements, professional development, and retention incentives. So we really do hope that this essential bill could really recognize long-term and economic benefits, and we look forward to your leadership in making that possible. I'm here for questions with my team.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your testimony and your efforts around this endeavor. Are there any questions from members of the committee pertaining to the testimony before us? Representative Welander.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. I'm looking at the language, and I was wondering, This is now the third child care proposal I've heard this morning with the Early Childhood Caucus and then now this. And so it's really exciting to see the attention that we're finally paying to this really important issue. Can you explain, so the payroll tax, it's 1.5% on anyone who is not a child care provider or an educational provider? Is that an educational role? I'm trying to think, what is the word that I
In
said?
my understanding of the version that this bill, this drafted bill, is trying to create, the workforce charge is a charge on employers at the end of the year. Whatever revenue that's generated in their payroll that they have, their actual payroll for the end of the year, that charge would be incurred. That's my understanding. So my understanding is that it wouldn't be a burden on the childcare workforce, or it wouldn't be a tax on the employees. But as a coalition, we really want to focus on a large-scale defined revenue source and making sure that if the legislature has strong ideas and creative solutions for something else to pay for a transformational switch to how we do childcare, then we're all for it.
Okay. Okay. Do you have, I'm going to have more than 2 questions. I'm sorry. Do you have a definition of education program provider? Is that under the same, does that fall under the same statutes as a child care provider?
The license authority, I'm assuming that when the LCO drafted this, they were using and recycling already existing language from the Office of Early Childhood.
Okay.
I know as advocates, we have been very much proponents of streamlining, but also mimicking whatever the Office of Early Childhood has already created. Childcare for CT has no intention to reinvent the wheel with licensing and regulations. That is their wheelhouse. We respect it, and we want to keep it intact.
Great, thank you. I'll look at the statutes that are listed and see if there's a definition there. Do you anticipate, oh, sorry.
Second, Representative,
Sorry.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from any other committee members? All right, I will recognize Representative Wielander for the second time.
Thank you. I know people are fighting to ask questions today. Do you anticipate any limitations for salary ranges on this, that employers would not have to impose this tax on people who were earning below a certain income, or like a salary range or an hourly range?
Are you referring to the defined revenue source, or are you
Yes.
referring for the defined revenue source? I think it's really up to the discretion of all of you, of the legislature, to create maybe business safeguards. I'm happy to express that part of our coalition, we do have businesses as well as CBIA. Again, not all coalition partners. We have been very, very willing to accept creative solutions that might not be this defined revenue source, but at least we're at the table together having this conversation and clear in mind that this is something that has to be fixed. So I cannot speak to caps or limitations on the business community in regards to this legislative proposal. I can only speak to the intentions of the coalition advocates.
Okay, thank you. And my last one is, and this may not be able to be answered at this point, but is there any anticipated amount that would provide that you're expecting to receive from this designated general income fund? I'm not remembering the right term, that would cover the supports that are listed as including the salary boosts?
So in my understanding of the way the proposal's written right now, the discretion of how much money could be given in grants to providers for overhead, for motivating new people to come into this career, would be under the board. So the fund, or the trust, whatever implementation, whatever body this will fall under to implement, if in fact it's the existing early childhood fund, or whatever the legislature decides how to navigate it. It's my understanding that this bill would give that body permission to decide how much in grants would be given to those programs. Sounds convoluted, but I think I got out of that clearly.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think, obviously, most bills at this point are a work in progress. And I appreciate the effort that was put into it. I do have concerns about the fact that this is a regressive tax, and I think we can find different ways of funding something this important that doesn't put any pressure on our most vulnerable. And if the bill is listing specific compensation schedules and things, when we'll need to have an understanding of what kind of anticipated take-in we'll be looking at with that kind of payroll tax. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just like to reiterate that I do not play favorites, and I did not just let Representative Wieslander ask a bunch of questions for edification. I just wanted to reiterate, I just want to say, there were no other questions. We went to her for the second time for future references, because I guarantee you it will come back up. Any other questions regarding the testimony before us? I do have one question. Is there another model like this anywhere else in the country?
So there's several models that really embody the intent of our proposal in regards to money. The intent of, or the committee's proposal and our support to this proposal in regards to money. You have the example of New Mexico, where they do have an opportunity where they have a trust fund. They use that trust fund and accrued money to then pay for early child care. You also have the example of Portland. You have the example of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., it's a corporate tax, and then they use that money to pay for raises for their providers in perpetuity, as long as there's money in their fund. I think what's important about that question, Representative, is that in order to fix child care, the legislative body and the governor, right, the executive and legislative branch have to understand that this is not about 100 million here or 100 million there. There is no solution with Band-Aids in small increments. This is about long-term. You need real sustainable growth with funding, and you have to start at the age of 0. If it's okay with you, I'm going to pass it also to our chair, Alex, because she lives day to day on this reality. Alex.
I think that's fine. And I just for clarification, that's Portland, Oregon, and not Portland, Maine.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I don't know that there's much I can add other than the level of crisis that we find ourselves in requires transformational change. If you continue to ask us to do what we're trying to do at the ground level, we will continue to have failure and see failures in our state and in the future of our children and our families. I think the key thing that Eva mentioned at the end there that I want to reiterate is we have been receiving crumbs, and we have been trying to make it work, and we just can't settle for that anymore. Our economy really needs more. Our children need more. Our teachers need more. We need more. I've been doing this for 35 years, and it's been the same since I started.
I appreciate that that assessment, and I see that it's being classified as a boost to Connecticut's economy. You mentioned D.C., you've mentioned New Mexico, you've mentioned Portland, Oregon, and not Portland, Maine. What has that classification done for them? Has it been a boost to their economy based on the model that you were suggesting here for the state of Connecticut?
Does anyone want to jump in? I'm happy to.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Thank you. And
Vermont as well. New York made attempts and actually had some setbacks because they chose to only invest in universal pre-K and did not address the 0 to 5 continuum, which
Right.
is why we put this bill forward as well.
Okay. I'm going to limit myself to 2 questions, stick to my own rule here. Any other questions from any other member of the committee before we set them free? All right. Thank you so much for your efforts and for your testimony. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.